go shorty, it's your birthday. Every time I hear it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah. Because the what's it called? The tempo is the exact same. I think.
Don't.
Isn't it the same rhythm?
Kind of. I mean, in the club's a little different. Like,
Dun, dun, dun,
but same tempo.
dun,
Yeah.
Tempo's exactly right. I think.
And that guitar, the ticka 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 ticka. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm proud of her.
Get Rich or Die Trying. Potentially, it is the greatest hip hop album of all time. It ended the
I mean, people voted with their feet.
Yeah.
I mean, with their wallets and their feet, both. Mm-hmm. Yes. They went to his concerts too. But yeah, no. What are you gonna do? Like, as Miles Davis said about when asked what is good music, he said, if it sounds good, it is good. And more people thought that about that album than any other hip hop album in history. So of course you're right. Mm-hmm. Like that's the objective basis for saying that.
Yeah. Also, it threw all the backpack rappers shoved them all into a locker. Like, enough of this lyrical miracle crap. We're back to selling drugs. We're back to shooting people again. Okay. This is all. Yeah.
What are backpack rappers again? What is this racist slur again?
It's like people like Common.
Tyler.
Tyler is more of a skater punk kind of guy when he came out.
Now we're really splitting hairs here.
Yeah.
The difference between backpack and skater rappers.
Early Kanye in 03, he literally wore the backpack, and then people like Pharrell also followed.
Like nerds?
Yeah, nerds. Yeah.
Backpack, of course.
Wearing the polo and
Right.
Common is in that school,
even though these are the only nerds who've never read a book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kanye said so. Okay, so I'm not. He said so. Tyler might have read a book or two, but generally speaking, these are not readers. And I'm saying if it's amazing that they get to be called nerds while having not read. Okay.
No, cool. They appropriated white nerd fashion and then made that cool.
Talk about privilege, right? Yeah, I want you to call me a basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I am. I'm part of the basketball player genre. Mm-hmm. Yet I can't even jump. So yeah, anyway, that's
50 Cent, who moved the culture back to selling drugs and shooting people, actually wrote a couple, I think. But yeah, the 50th Law.
Made a movie, made a very successful TV series, right? That he's a couple, more than one, I think.
Some video games.
He's acted multiple times in major Hollywood productions, and the good dude's an amazing businessman.
Mm-hmm.
On to the news.
Oh,
has anything happened in American politics last couple of weeks? It's a slow season generally. I can't think of anything. Should we just continue to talk about Black pop culture, or because politics? I'm trying to think is there an election, or people are running for things, or what anything happened in the last few weeks around that that we need to talk about that's newsworthy, you know what I mean? That might be of interest. The American empire is falling, everyone. Run if you live here. Okay? That's what's happened. Okay? Run. Do you see what's happening? That's what's happening. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
This is over, man. This is like Rome end stage.
I think you shouldn't underestimate Kamala. I think she has the potential.
It's Kamala, you racist cracker.
Carmela, as Tucker calls her. Tucker just gets even more
Anthony.
Yeah.
A very fine small forward.
The real Kamala Harris was the great Kamala, who was a pro wrestler who was a racist Ooga Booga stereotype.
Oh,
and
really?
His real name was also Harris. Yeah, the great Kamala.
Don't say. Mm-hmm. He didn't put as many black people in jail as she did.
Nope.
Ka-ching. No, this is it. I mean, seriously, what do you mean? It's Donald Trump, who might, if you were to give in multiple terms, would probably just let the empire sink into the sand. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. Or Kamala. Actually, I heard her say, it's actually, she says Kamala. So she has a little white girl inflection in it, which is interesting. So Kamala is actually the very proper pronunciation. No, I don't. I think it's over. We're losing. I mean, so how many wars have the United States has lost every war since 1945? The current president, who has declared that he is mentally unfit to.
No.
What? No, you're right.
He hasn't given any reason.
You're right.
Joe Biden has not given any reason. He just said, I'm not going to let personal ambition get in the way, and I'm going to hand this off to the younger generation.
Okay. So the United States possesses 11 Ohio-class nuclear submarines, each carrying multiple Trident III missiles. Each missile, I believe, splits into 6 or 8 different nuclear warheads when it reaches its apex flight, and then disperses those warheads. So that's whatever that is, dozens of nuclear warheads. We have 11 of those submarines, each with multiples. So we know that simply the United States submarine fleet, only all by its little self, can kill every single person in Asia. And the current president, everyone presumes, has said essentially without saying so, but the reason he's stepping down obviously is that he is mentally incapable, unfit.
No.
Hi, dude.
No. The only reason why he's stepping down is because the poll numbers are so bad. That's
the fate of the species.
Officially. Democrats don't care about his competence.
I'm making the normie. Can I make the normie point before you get intelligent? I think like a smart normie would say that. You know, they would say, "Wait a minute, no, okay, your smart normie aunt and uncle, those people, they should be saying, right? Can you let me finish? Like, you talk a lot on this show. I just want you to know that." No, people have said. I'm just saying it's a thing.
Yeah.
Just be aware. I'm not. Listen. I'm just. Hey, man. I'm just asking you to be aware. Okay, that's all. Yeah. Just think about like just closing it a little bit. Anyway. No, I mean the smart normie. What your smart normie friends and relatives should be saying is that, geez, wait a second. He's tacitly saying, please don't interrupt me. Tacitly saying, everyone assumes he's saying that he can't hack it mentally, running a campaign for president. That's what everyone assumes Joe Biden is doing. He's leaving. He's resigning from the campaign, guys, because he can't handle the campaign, but he's not resigning from the presidency. Now, aren't we more concerned about that than how badly he would fuck up his campaign? So that's what your smart normie aunt and uncle should be saying. I don't know if they are, but they should be.
Yeah.
Michael Weimer here in Indiana thinks that he has something more interesting to say.
The official
so you go right ahead.
The official Democratic Party line that Joe himself has said is that he is one of the greatest presidents of all time, that he has accomplished more in 4 years than people do in 8, that he's the first president in over a century to reside over America while America is not at war. Yeah. This is the official.
Obvious.
Yeah.
That's obvious. Look around. There's no war.
Yeah.
That's a good job, Joe.
And so only because the poll numbers are so bad, and this is what he's really tacitly saying. He isn't even explicitly saying this, but this is what I've heard Democrats say. Only because the poll numbers are so bad and that there's no way that he can beat Trump right now, that he has to step down to save democracy. Because, and this is true, I think, old white men are unpopular. And so the Democratic base will be more energized with a young face at the head of it and will have a better chance of beating Trump.
Can we?
And that part is
No, I just don't want to just raise her yet. I'm starting to.
But here's the thing: Biden was already senile. Biden was already senile 5 years ago. Everybody could see it. Like, he's gotten a lot worse. But if senility was a problem, like, he wouldn't have been in office this long, and he wouldn't have gotten there in the first place. There was an Atlantic op-ed that was like, please, Joe Biden, just get over the finish line. I believe it is all we need is a corporal body to be present to fill the office. This is literally an op-ed in the Atlantic from 2020. All we need is a corporal body present to beat Trump.
Why not a hologram? I mean, let's go. No, he's Hitler, so we got to stop him.
Yeah.
Except we, of course, would never use violence to stop Hitler, which always made sense to me. But anyway, yeah. So here, I actually think that this episode with Joe Biden, the last stage of his political career, I think it is very instructive and actually extremely important in understanding maybe the most important thing about politics, which is something that I talk about, which is that very, very, very few people, like I've only known one or two people in my whole life who are like this. Very, very few people want to manage or govern other people. Right? I mean, I've been political my whole life. It's never even occurred to me to do that. And no one I know, all the political people I've ever known, no one's run for office, but no one's even had those sort of aspirations, except sort of like very vaguely, wishing for certain sort of political outcomes in the world for other people, but not doing anything about it. I'm talking about people who actually go out there and become our rulers, which is an amazing thing. Like, they become your ruler, right? They can kill you. Obama killed an American citizen. They can put you in prison. They do that all the time. They can conscript you, send you to war, send your child to war. It's an amazing class of people that is, again, almost as rare as the Himalayan snow leopard. I've been around political people my entire life, as everyone knows, and I've only known just a couple who are like this, who have had actual concrete aspirations to govern other people, other human beings. I think that if you were to take politicians, which is that's who I'm talking about here, and you were to just take them as a class, like take all the current politicians, put them all on a psychoanalyst's couch, and ask the psychoanalyst to, come up with a sort of reasonable description, I'm pretty sure the vast majority would be classified as psychotic or sociopathic, according to the DSM. I mean, certainly sociopathic. And I really mean that. If you think about the actual personalities of actual political leaders just in this country. Think about those guys and the women too. They're different, man. It's a weird thing. They're sociopaths. And so if you're a sociopath, you kind of have two career options. One is serial killer, and the other is serial killer, government. But Joe Biden, what he's been doing in the last several weeks and months has been demonstrating to a normal person like you and me, the astonishing depth of the narcissism and the arrogance and the megalomania of politicians. And Biden, and I've said this before, I observed him up close in person on Capitol Hill. Like, he's just politician qua politician. He's just that kind of guy. That's who we're talking about. I mean, Joe Biden currently believes, listen to this. This is what he has been tacitly saying as well. He believes that it is better for me, Thad Russell, and all of you out there who are Americans. It's better for me and all of you that he remain as president. that it's a good thing for me now. That he's doing, it's a good, because he's going to do good things for me. Having never met me and not knowing I exist except as a possible statistic. The Jesus-like arrogance. I mean, Jesus wasn't arrogant, but it's the Jesus complex here on full display. I am your savior. I am your Joe Biden, one of the biggest dipshits you'll ever see in public life, who's voted for every bad thing since 1970. Every war, every prison, every bad law you can think of, no matter whether you're left wing or right wing, by the way, you'll hate everything Joe Biden's done as a career. It's incredible. Not to mention his serial lying and plagiarism and hucksterism, the grift that got him embedded in Ukraine to the point where he was essentially the instigator. That's the really fundamental point about the Hunter Biden episode, is that the Biden family, maybe more than any other entity, even more than the United States government as a whole, was the principal instigator of the Ukraine war that we have right now. That's what Hunter was there to do, was to help launch a biological weapons program in Ukraine with which to attack Russia. Yeah, that's what he was there for. We have the email. We have the documents. We have the receipts showing this. So this guy who, again, whether you are a liberal or a conservative or a socialist or a libertarian, Joe Biden's your least favorite congressperson of the last 50 years. It's an amazing career record. The principal cheerleader for the Iraq War, for all three Iraq wars, the author of the notorious 1994 crime bill that ended up locking up 2.3 million Americans, very infamously. That's him. I mean, this dude is, yeah, I don't believe in evil, but if there is such a thing, it's this guy. And so his notion that leads him to humiliate himself in public in front of the whole world, it is so powerful that it leads him to do that. He must know on some level that he's making himself the mockery of the universe at the end of his career. He's willing to do that because he really believes that he's going to help you and me and your mom and my grandma and everybody, all Americans and the world, by the way, not just he's going to help Ukrainians and Israelis and even Palestinians and the whole world. It's a Jesus complex. Politicians have this. And once we understand that about those very weird, unusual people who become politicians, once we understand that, we will understand how to orient our politics around them, which is to say, never, ever, ever merge your identity with them, the way that much of MAGA does with Trump, the way that much of the liberal base did with Obama. Don't do that. So that's all. I think that's what's important about this chapter in Biden's history. Back to you.
The point on he's embarrassing himself.
Yeah.
I don't think that Biden was shown poll numbers that show him losing, or that he remembers being shown poll numbers that show him losing. I think he's been very closely protected and shown this image and being told by all of his handlers that he's great and that everybody loves him for saving democracy by beating Trump. I think that's why he was so adamant that he's staying in the race. Because everybody around him and the official party line still is he's one of the greatest presidents of all time, and he's retiring for no reason. He's not seeking re-election for no reason given at all still.
So you're saying that the narcissistic megalomania is actually deeper than I am estimating, right? That it's so deep that he actually believes the propaganda around him.
Yeah,
that he's the shit, that he's the man, he's the next FDR or better, best, greatest president, whatever, of his whole generation, or what are they saying? Ever or of all time?
Yeah, they're getting up there, like the most effective president ever.
Most effective.
Like, yeah, they're putting things like that out. I've heard best since Lincoln in some op-eds.
Well, I mean, again, who's he going up against? You know, from my standards, that's not saying much, but yeah. Okay, cool. That's good. No, really good. Yeah, no, I think that might be possible with Joe, having again seen the man up close and personal, you know, and like having observed him just also from afar for decades, unfortunately. Yeah, I think it is possible. He believes isn't that wild though? So again, guys, everybody, think about that. Don't ever, no matter how cool they are. There's lefties who watch this show, like Lula, good example. Be careful. I'm not saying you can't vote for him. I'm just saying, just chill on the merger of one's identity with the political actor there, because he'll take advantage of you and sell you out or do much worse to you. So, yeah.
Do you find the circumstances of his resignation at all suspicious? That it was a letter with a signature that does not match his other signatures. It was underlined. Joe Biden doesn't really underline his signature. You can find more analysis of the signature. The signature is very suspicious on that letter. The letter heading is suspicious, and it was released on X. You know, this wasn't like a 40-minute address like LBJ gave. This was a letter on X. And this was after saying for weeks, I'm staying in the race. I'm going to win this thing. I'm the best. I always have been the best. And he gets COVID. And then while he's under duress, like physical duress, apparently, taking a very heavy prescription of Paxlovid, which has its own symptoms with it. It makes you feel very weak and nauseous and everything. Yeah. He meets with Democratic insiders. And then all of a sudden, without any proof that he's alive, there's this letter on X that suspends his campaign.
I saw a couple of liberals who I really respect. There are a few liberals out there who are actually quite good still. Robert Wright is one of them. Very smart guy. And he's really correct about a lot of stuff. But he's just got a good intellect. But a total, basically, liberal, ultimately. Yeah. I mean, they were poo-pooing this. But, I mean, what's your take? And what have you seen?
I think he was either bullied into it while he was under physical duress. I think Democratic insiders either bullied him into conceding while he was under duress, or somebody like deep faked it, forged a signature, wrote a letter for him, and threw it up on X. And then once he got out of isolation and out of hiding, he had to go along with it. Otherwise, he'd be revealing that the deep state works against him, and he'd be revealing levels of the matrix that the public is not supposed to see.
The man's a lifelong politician. He's been in public office since I was a child, half a century. He resisted when he was obviously declining for, what is it now, 4 years, 5 years? When did we first start noticing Biden declining? Years. It's been multiple years, and he has resisted consistently, relentlessly, without any pause, right? Even as the entire Democratic Party establishment over the last few months has caved in all around him, he never once conceded anything on that ground. The guy, as I said, and also as we've just laid out, is a megalomaniac, politician par excellence. And so do you think he went out without a fight, guys? We just sort of know this. I mean, all the circumstantial evidence points to that. The family, I think, Jill and Hunter, apparently, were, I guess, actually supportive. Although I don't really know what Jill was up to, but apparently Hunter was supporting him, telling him to run, amazingly. But yeah, I think, again, we don't know, but the leading rumor is that Nancy Pelosi led basically a delegation to the White House. Some of it might have been on the phone, but essentially they all visited Joe in one way or the other, the top leadership of the party, and said, if you don't do this, we're going to 25th Amendment you, I guess. That's what most people are saying. and that'll be which I guess they would say would be, it would be a much greater public humiliation, I would think. Although he seems immune to humiliation. That's the other thing about Joe Biden. There is a real sociopathic. I mean, the guy is a clinical sociopath. He's absolutely, as far as I can see, immune, as I said, to humiliation, embarrassment. The guy got busted for plagiarizing his own campaign speeches the first time he ran for president. And what did he do? Kept running for president. If you got busted for that, would you continue in that career? This is a different dude. These guys, they're different. So yeah, it was a knockdown, drag out fight. Had to be inside the White House, probably in the bedroom. The master bedroom in the White House. I would imagine most of this conversation happened in the bedroom. And I don't mean because there's any sex going on. I'm seeing like Downton Abbey, when the whatchamacallit head of the house was like sitting up in bed and the servants were coming around, and because he was sick and enfeebled. I think that's what the scene was. But I think he dug in and fought like hell, and they had to coup him. So this is all by way of saying Robert Wright and some smart liberals said, kind of mocked people who were calling it a coup, and asserting that those who use the word coup are ignorant and stupid. And I don't quite get it, because all those delegates in the Democratic Party just voted for Joe Biden to be president. They just did. But someone clearly came and told him that he had to leave, had to go, because he didn't want to leave. He made that very clear. Are we not all in agreement on that Joe Biden did not want to leave as of 5 days ago? Very clearly. So someone forced him out. That's a coup. It's an anti-democratic coup. The Democratic Party, after having shanked Bernie Sanders and then having done this, not to mention J6 and everything they did against Trump and Russiagate and all that, has really outdone itself in the last 2 decades for being the leading anti-democratic force in modern American history. There's just no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. They've just done one spectacular thing after another to violate, destroy, crush, almost mock our rights. So this is just an amazing development, or not. But yeah, so Joe, the current head of the anti-democratic Democratic Party, has now effectively said, and everyone interprets this way, that he's incapable, physically incapable, of running a campaign for president, yet he remains president. And what is it now? 6-7 months more? Jesus. How much can happen? Wait, what is it? July 7, 6-ish months? Half a year? How much can happen in half a year of American global politics? Because all politics here is global. Everything that happens in America is global. Jesus Christ. I don't understand. This is Rome, man. This is it. We're done. Kamala Harris doesn't know where Ukraine is on a map, guys. We know that, right? She hadn't heard of Hamas before October 7th. You guys understand that, right? She had never heard the word Nakba. Forget that. She didn't. No. She didn't know what the Knesset was before October 7th. Okay? I promise you. She knows nothing. Everything she does know, she's learned by some tutor in the last 9 months. You think she really was hip to the history of the Cold War and NATO's expansion since 1991 and all? Oh yeah, sure. She's been, totally been examining the books, the realists. She went through that school of thought. Then she went through the Wallersteinian Marxist school of thought. She did it all. The liberal idealist school of thought. She studied all the international relations schools of thought. She's come up with a synthesis of her own to greater understand. No, she knows nothing. And so that means, of course, that the second and third in command will be running all foreign policy. They'll be the real commander in chief. I mean, this chick knows, Biden actually knows a fair amount, having been the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee for many, many years. He actually does know. And I think that might be the one policy area where he does have a fair amount of knowledge. And he sort of demonstrated that in the debate. That was the one place where he wasn't embarrassing in the debate. She knows nothing. She really, really knows nothing. Go look up, go watch, listen to her interviews about foreign policy. You can just tell she has the knowledge of a 7th grade girl. And so, yeah, that means we don't know who's going to be running foreign policy, because it's whoever she selects as, probably the NSA, whoever the NSA is, I guess probably Jake Sullivan again.
There are rumors that she wants to kick out Jake Sullivan, Anthony Blinken, Lloyd Austin.
Really?
Yeah, there's rumors that she wants to kick them out, and that there's rumors that they're walking around Washington with like sullen expressions, knowing that their days are numbered. And she gave a speech today, I believe, talking about Netanyahu visiting Washington, D.C., and sort of placed more emphasis on the civilian casualties in Gaza than Biden has, and emphasized, started to put herself in more of a leadership role than she had prior. But before we move on to that, I want to kind of still go chronologically. There's also rumors that all the Democrats secretly hate each other behind closed doors, and that Joe Biden endorsing Kamala was a giant middle finger to the Obamas, who ousted him, and that the Obamas wanted somebody else. I believe they wanted that astronaut from Arizona, or maybe Newsom or somebody, and the Obamas wanted somebody else, and they don't trust Kamala to be able to.
It seems like there's always an astronaut from Arizona.
Yeah.
Who should be president. It seems like that's a thing. Well, I mean, God hopes that yes, this is true, that the Democrats, there's lots of infighting. I think it's quite possible, given that they are falling apart. I mean, this is the greatest crisis in the history of the Democratic Party, I believe. And I mean, even this is worse than Wilson having a stroke and effectively being replaced by his wife for several months, because that was just Wilson. There was no structural crisis in the party. But it's not just Biden being infirm, it's that the second in command is incompetent. I mean, equally incompetent, just for different reasons. And there is no one waiting in the wings to take over and lead the party. Maybe Gavin Newsom, but he doesn't seem to be actually interested anymore. So who knows? And then you have, and we do need to talk about this. I mean, I don't know if it's all right to go here, but I do think Gaza, Palestine, Israel is going to be now very, very important in multiple ways. Kamala just came out with a statement denouncing the flag burners at the anti-Netanyahu rally in DC, which, is this incredibly disgusting tactic that's been happening since October 7th. Every time there's some rally, they find the one or two, if that many, Hamas, actual pro-Hamas signs, and they take pictures and put it all over Twitter, and every pro-Israel Zionist puts it on their Twitter and says, see, this is what's going on. And then they call us, everybody pro-Hamas who says anything critical of Israel. So she came out on their side and didn't mention anything about anything of value in that protest. She simply denounced the handful of people who burned an American flag. And then also suggested that there was anti-Semitism, offering zero evidence of there having been anti-Semitism. And again, I have still, to this moment, I have seen zero evidence of any anti-Semitism at that march, including there was someone posted a picture of two guys with, I think, Al-Qassam headbands. And, you know, clearly, yes, siding with Hamas. And they said something like the final solution for Zionists in their sign. And, you know, this was, of course, thrown around the internet as proof that these protests are simply anti-Semitic and pro-Hamas. But even that technically is not anti-Semitic. Zionists, again, are not Jews. They're Zionists. It's a separate category. So she came out on that side, on the side of AIPAC. And yet her base, Kamala Harris's base, and now this is interesting and spicy, right? Is, I'm pretty sure, overwhelmingly pro-Palestine. At least pro-ceasefire, but probably passionately so. You know, her base is the woke wing of the Democratic Party. Now, everyone needs to remember that a lot of woke people, a lot of left-wing people are not Democrats. They don't vote for Democrats. They would never vote for Kamala. I'm not saying a majority of them, but a lot of them. But there is a woke wing of the Democratic Party, clearly, right? It's influenced everybody. Even Joe Biden had a trans person to the White House. So we know this is a thing. So that's her base. That's who, if anybody's going to be excited about Kamala Harris within the party, it's them. And they are overwhelmingly pro-Palestine. And they don't like all the baby killing. And many of them are passionate pro-Palestine protesters. So she's really cutting. I mean, there's a scissors effect with her here that I think is going to chop her to shreds, because her base wants that, but she's part of the party establishment, who obviously is completely under lockdown by AIPAC. And she just demonstrated that with that message about the flag burning at the rally. So she's just announced that she's with AIPAC in Israel, while her base is dying inside, really spiritually, about these dead kids every single day. And I think it won't result in anger necessarily among her base, the sort of the Democratic Party left here is what I'm talking about. But I do think a whole lot of depression, because it will also be, you know, wow, their God queen, black woman running for president. Wow, what could be, who's overseeing that? The killing of all those brown babies. It's not, I don't think there's going to be outrage in the party necessarily against her, but I do think it's going to depress the base a whole lot. It's just going to become, because it becomes impossible to be a full-throated Kamala supporter. It's just because everybody knows about the dead babies in Gaza now because of TikTok. Obama could get away with it. He killed a bunch of dead babies, but he could get away with it because that was a different time with different social media, different technology, no smartphones in the Middle East. People didn't see what he was doing, but we all see it. It's right in our face. Everybody's seen it. And the left wing of the Democratic Party, which is Kamala's base, they've seen those TikTok videos more than anybody. They've seen more dead babies than anybody. And so their black queen, that's what she's tagged with. And we've got the convention coming up, which is going to make that even more apparent. I'm sort of wondering what effect this will have on the protests at the convention in Chicago, which I've been looking forward to. I kind of can't wait for this, but now I'm a little worried that Kamala is going to maybe blunt a little of that because she's the black queen. So I don't know. What do you think? What are the effects, the Kamala's effects on things that matter? You know, like war.
I think Democrats, I'm just super, super disappointed right now at all the Democrats that were saying, I'm not going to vote for Joe Biden, because it seems like they're all lockstep ready to vote for Kamala. It just seems like that. I haven't seen too many hard left socialists go out and say, oh, she's a product of the system. Oh, she's currently the vice president. If she wanted to do something, she could have done it already. I'm not seeing that happen. And I'm seeing a lot of people just happy that somebody new is on the ticket, somebody that they can project all their hopes on is on the ticket. And yeah,
that's what I've seen so far too. It's been depressing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it shouldn't be too surprising, although there's been a particular zeal about it among liberals about being pro Kamala at the drop of a hat. Like all of a sudden they didn't mention the girl's name for 4 years. And now all of a sudden they've got Kamala, profile pictures, etc. Like all my liberal friends on Facebook, it's all Kamala. And I said, where was she for the last 4 years ago? Yeah, there's a zeal, about it that is disconcerting. But yet again, I've been nothing but disconcerted by liberals for decades. So what else is new?
It's like we were this close to like substantive resistance to the Democratic Party, substantive like reflection on their on what the Democratic Party is, and it turns out it's completely meaningless. Like all that they care about again is they're motivated by ressentiment, they're motivated by hatred. All that they talk about is hatred of Trump, and they can project their hopes onto anybody.
So I am again foreign policy, right? This is what matters most with the presidency. Of course, almost no one remembers this. This audience will, but Americans, it's like the last thing on their minds. But guys, this is by far the most important thing about the presidency. Again, Kamala Harris and U.S. foreign policy. What a wild concept, first of all, just to put those two things together. But she is now going to be forced over the next 6 months, no, not even, 4 months, to talk quite a bit, I think, about Gaza, U.S. policy toward Israel, Ukraine, U.S. policy toward Russia. Because Trump's got some ideas. Trump's got a lot of ideas. J.D. Vance has even more ideas and is going to be, but J.D. Vance is talking about those things, especially Ukraine, a lot. Trump's talking about Israel now more and more. But most importantly, her base is insisting that she say something. And so don't you think she's going to be at the Democratic convention? There will be a lot of talk about Gaza. There has to be, because again, the left wing of the Democratic Party is not happy about that very issue right there. I think she's going to have to learn some of the history of Israel and Palestine, and she's going to have to actually formulate. And here's the thing, everybody. She and her staff, her policy staff, and this is how it works during campaigns, they're going to have to formulate a particular policy position on Ukraine and on Gaza, and probably on NATO, and probably on foreign policy in general. She's going to have foreign policy advisors, right? Who most likely will just be Jake Sullivan and Tony Blinken, but they're going to have to write it down, is my point. Not necessarily a new policy, but a newly articulated policy. We are about to learn what the Democratic Party's positions are on those two most important topics. So that's what everyone should be focused on. The Democratic Party establishment will decide what their position is going into the convention on those foreign policy issues through her campaign. And then she's going to have to articulate it on the campaign trail and during debates, et cetera, and in press conferences. And wow. So we'll see. And then she's going to get eviscerated by her base when she talks about Israel, because she's going to have to say nice things about Israel. People don't realize this. I need to turn off this fan 1 second.
Okay. So I voted for Kanye West in 2020 because he was the only presidential candidate who was asked a substantive question on foreign policy. Neither Biden nor Trump were asked any questions, I believe, about foreign policy in 2020. If you follow the whole campaign, if you watch all the debates, I don't believe there was a single question about foreign policy. When Kanye West was on the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe Rogan asked him what he would do if China invaded Taiwan. So that's the level of discourse in American politics. And even if a substantive question on foreign policy gets asked in, let's say, a debate, the next sentence will be Vice President Harris, you have 1 minute to respond. So she doesn't need to prepare a long thought out ideology and be prepared for everything. She is going to have very carefully curated interviews, very carefully curated rallies. If she gets asked a question by the hard left, it's going to be through a megaphone, and it's going to be a disruption. And she'll say, I care about free speech and I care about civilian life, but we need to keep going. That's all she has to say. She gave a 6-minute speech today saying Israel has a right to defend itself, bring our hostages home, but I care about civilian life. And I don't think she's going to need to say anything further than that. And she's going to say, I'm committed to a 2-state solution, and I believe it's possible. So that's all she's going to have to say. That's more than has been asked of Biden already, I think.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. Well, you had that sussed out pretty deeply there. That was impressive. But I don't know. I think you're underestimating internal Democratic Party politics, which I actually was basically a part of the left wing of the Democratic Party in the late 80s. I worked for a lobbyist, which was like a Bernie Sanders kind of politics, Jesse Jackson at the time, social democratic, very left wing. So I know about that. I mean, like the left of the Democratic, and that was in the 80s. That was during Reagan. And so we had very little influence within the party then. But that's since Bernie, that's all changed. And so the Bernie wing is quite substantial. And then the squad sort of amplified that. So the left wing of the Democratic Party is not a majority, certainly, but it is a very loud and quite powerful minority within the party. So, and their constituencies, most importantly, and here's the thing, like everybody in Congress from Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Oakland, Los Angeles, New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, every one of those Congress people, their constituencies, their voters are 80 to 90% furious with Israel right now. The people who actually vote in Democratic primaries, those are the real political people on the left, liberals. We've seen the polls, like overwhelmingly really anti-Israel now. And it's very important to them because, again, they see the dead kids every single day. So there's going to be what's called a whipsaw action on the Democratic Party right now, or within the Democratic Party. AIPAC, which finances the majority of them, of the Democrats in Congress, to, a big tune also, against right now a majority of their constituency. We also know that a majority, 70% of Democrats in general across the country are for a ceasefire. But the ones in the big cities are the ones who are actually marching in the streets and are militant about it. And so, those are all Democratic Party cities. Those are all AOC is looking over her shoulder every single day at those people. She's concerned every single day about the pro-Palestine marchers, the protests in her district, because she's walking a fine line. They all are. So I don't know, man. I actually think that not from Trump, not from the press, not from the media, certainly, but from her own base within the party, including people in Congress, but her own base, her own voters, people who actually get out to vote for her. I think they're going to push her hard. And you'll see this, I think, around the convention. They're going to push her hard to say something. And the question is, how much will she say that will piss off AIPAC? Right? I think she's going to be forced to say something that AIPAC doesn't like. And so that's the fight. That's going to be the compromise. AIPAC is eventually going to say to her, okay, you're allowed to give them this. You're allowed to say something critical of Israel or something in favor of Palestinians, but I think that her base is too strong. I think the base is too strong. They're going to get something out of her, something rhetorical, only rhetorical. Sure. But it will be important though. A rhetorical concession, some criticism. It might just be of Netanyahu. That's the way I think they've been going, is trying to just focus on Netanyahu and blame him for everything. That's the Democrats. I mean, Pelosi said that, which is sort of interesting, like right before they invite him to speak to Congress. But that's where the Democratic leadership has been going. Schumer, of course, denounced Netanyahu, called for regime change, you know. So that's probably that might be their tactic. But I think the base is very upset about this and is going to demand Kamala do something. So I think there's more to it than that. Yeah. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. We're speculating.
I know. Well, I encourage all leftist supporters of Palestine and people who really care about that to explicitly say as many times as possible that Palestine is more important than abortion, that it is more important that we save those living kids in Palestine from being bombed and murdered to death than it is that Roe versus Wade get enshrined into law in 2025. You have to explicitly say that if you want the Democratic Party to concede to you at all.
Wait, who are you saying should say that?
Anybody who is of the left, who might vote Democrat, and who is critical of Israel right now. You have to say Palestine, the dead babies in Gaza are more important than my right to have an abortion.
Right. They must say that in order
to influence the Democratic Party on policy.
Because Democrat. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Because, well, you're saying because abortion is like the most important issue to the Democratic base.
Yeah. And I think think a lot of leftists can be fearmongered on abortion. Yeah.
That is really something. Just let's pause and think and just note that. I totally underestimated that until I started paying attention to the right in a serious way, you know, in recent years. But they're correct about this once again. It's objectively true. We know this from polls. I mean, the number one issue for Democratic rank and file voters is abortion. That's the thing they're most passionate about. And again, if you've ever been around, you know, Democratic Party loyalists, you know, people who like loyally vote for the Democratic Party every election, you know, those people who are kind of passionate about the party, you know, hate Republicans. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, abortion is always on the top of their mind. When you ask them about policy preferences, you know, name something about policy that makes Democrats preferential to Republicans, you always hear abortion. So let's pause and think about this. The leading political party in the greatest superpower in the history of the world, its base, the membership, the base, the rank and file of that party is principally and primarily concerned with abortion. And I'm a pro-choice guy, but I do find that very odd. And I'm not even sure what to say about that, except that, you know, maybe once again, the right wing is correct in that we are living in late stages Rome. And that's just yet another piece of evidence for that. What the right wing would call debauchery and decadence, exemplified by what is it? The left wants the state to fund abortions. They want this, you know, government funded abortions. And in fact, that has happened. So, you know, that would be anybody with any conservative inclinations whatsoever. And it's not me would look at that. They do look at that and they say, well, obviously that is, you know, that is late stage empire. This is what happens. Great empires like Rome end up collapsing. They implode under the weight of their own decadence once they achieve the apex of power and wealth. Then comes along the human inclinations, the human passions, the human desires that are hedonistic. And now that we can get riches and spoils and slaves from all over the world with our empire, we live it up. And when we live it up, we end up getting soft and fat and weak, and we no longer rule effectively, and the whole thing collapses. That is the, you know, the sort of simplified, obviously, story of Rome, or at least that's the way it's told by conservatives, the general story. And that's how we're seeing, that's how people on the right see America in the 21st century. And I think there's a lot to that narrative, you know, and again, I'm pro-choice, but there is something about that is the number one issue for that party, for the main party, for the number one party in this country is abortion. It's a global superpower. Why is it not something about being a global superpower that's the number one issue? It's not even a top 10 issue, foreign policy. Abortion. And we also know that women, middle-aged women who watch MSNBC and CNN, and I've talked about this many times, middle-aged women who watch CNN and MSNBC are the most important base, demographic base within the Democratic Party. When you get them, they're the ones who basically determine what policy is in the party. That's who's passionate. That's who shows up. That's who votes. That's who makes sure their husband votes. They're the most active on social media. They're the angriest on social media, the most aggressive, et cetera, et cetera. And again, if you've ever been around middle-aged liberal women, you know what I'm talking about. So and of course, they care about two issues almost exclusively: abortion and gay rights, gay and now trans rights. Those are the things that middle-aged liberal women care about almost to the exclusion of all other issues, which again looks pretty decadent from any kind of traditional perspective. And so I don't even know what that is, but it is quite something that is the party that runs the world, the political organization that runs the world effectively and has for a century. Now its membership is dominated, its base, and now even some of its leadership is made up of people who care most about trans children and abortion. What do you make of that? I think you have something to say. Being from the heartland.
Uh-huh. Man, I'm not sure if there's anything I want to say on the record about it. I mean, it should honestly speak for itself that we're not a serious country that cares about serious issues, and that both of these issues are emotionally compelling anecdote issues. Like, you can imagine the gay trans child that is pushed to suicide because their parents don't accept them, and is kicked out on the street because they can't live their authentic self. You can imagine that, and you can get swept up in that story, and there's probably a million Hollywood movies made about that now. And then you can imagine the victim of rape or incest who doesn't want to carry their deformed rapist's baby to term, and won't be able to provide a good life for them, and is panicked. And you can imagine those anecdotes, and so you can just live in this imaginary world where those stories that resonate with you purely for emotional reasons, and maybe you know somebody who knows someone who knows someone who that happened to, or maybe you know, it's just easy to capture the imagination with those and see it as the most important thing. And then there is the sexual analysis of this, of like sexual politics. Like, for me, a woman who cares about abortion as their number one issue is like a man who cares about prostitution as the number one issue. It's like you demand to have access to consequence-free sex. And you think that your sexual strategy and selection is the most important thing in the world, and that it is not only it's a human right that must be celebrated, and under no circumstances should you ever be denied access to consequence-free sex, or should you be cornered into having a baby that you don't think will be on your
Hang on. So there's demanding access to it, meaning, community subsidization, I suppose, right, of your access to consequence-free sex, or usually state, of course, state provided access to sex work or whatever. Okay. I'm not for that. I'm not for that. But can we be for the aspiration for it? I mean, is it okay to want consequence-free sex? I would like. I would listen, Mr. Weimer.
All right.
I would like to ask permission to desire consequence-free sex for me and the society I live in, for everyone in it, and not be shamed or judged for it by you.
Yeah.
Is that okay? That's my permission. Request has been submitted.
Yeah. Well, this is consequence-free sex is like to cease to be human, to completely divorce sex from reproduction and from pair bonding. What? It's transhumanism. It's moving on from being like you're no longer an animal and you're completely mechanical in spirit and functional in base, and you're not definitionally human.
Have you never watched Pornhub videos? Those people suffer no consequences. What do you mean? Dude, what are you talking about, man? We manipulate nature in all sorts of ways. Like radically manipulate, alter nature to make life more pleasant, easier, more convenient. In all sorts of ways. Oh, but when it comes to sex, oh, Mr. Weimer, should I call you Pastor Weimer? Here he comes. Here he comes talking about, oh, no. You're no longer a human if you have consequence-free sex. Well, like, what about like consequence-free air conditioning? You know, I would really like some right now, by the way.
Yeah.
But I think we all feel entitled to consequence-free air conditioning. Consequence-free motorized ground transportation. You know, there are no moral or ethical or physical or medical or legal consequences to taking the bus or riding in a car or enjoying air conditioning on a hot summer day, unlike me right now. But so no one cares if you indulge, and you can indulge all day long in air conditioning. No one's gonna judge you. Not even you, Pastor Weimer. But when it comes to sex, no, you can't have that. Oh no, that has to have some consequences. See, now
it's. I mean,
if you wanna just spring to life straight out of the Old Testament, fine. Just let us know, okay, before you jump in from the book of Ezekiel or whatever the fuck it is. So, go ahead.
I mean, I guess you could have like a vasectomy and always wear a condom and like be in the most sterile environment forever to protect yourself from diseases. But like the nature of the thing is to create a person. It's for reproduction. Like that's it. That's the drive. That's why we want to do it, is because it's the most pleasurable thing, because our brain is rewarding us for continuing on into the next generation. Just because it feels like you've avoided making a baby in the present moment or avoided getting a disease doesn't mean that it doesn't leave an impact on your reward circuitry in your brain or your eternal spirit.
So back to the presidential race. So I think Biden has no chance. Oh no, he already resigned. Anyway, I think that I just think we're getting theological now.
Yeah.
No, that's all fine. No, I just what was the issue that sparked all this? This specific political issue.
Abortion is the number one.
Abortion, yes,
is the number one.
Yeah, their fetish for abortion, which really is something. But again, it's women. It's the women in the party. I know this. I mean, they're Democratic men, of course, who support it as well. But like the passionate ones, I know this, are women.
Yeah,
for obvious reasons.
That door swings both ways. The most passionate anti-abortion people I've ever met are always women. They see it as protecting a human life and protecting a child. And
that's right.
For some reason, women like protecting children, and they're passionate about that issue. I don't know why. Maybe some scientists will figure that out one day.
Yeah, just talk to women from Mississippi.
Yeah,
you'll see that there are most women who are pro-life, are most passionate pro-lifers are women, for sure.
Yeah. And so whenever anybody says a man shouldn't have an opinion on this issue, I'm always like, fine. But then we're still pretty much 50-50 split on the issue. And women will have to argue about it amongst themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
News. More news.
More news.
We have 20 minutes. I want to make sure we cover that. We have things. So, let's see, an assassination attempt on one candidate.
Yeah.
Dropping out of the race by another candidate, a coup against the United States president, some stuff there. The liberal hardcore is continuing to insist that Trump was not actually hit by a bullet, but rather by glass from a teleprompter that was shattered by the bullet. And that seems important to them.
Or that he cut his own ear and it was all fake.
Oh,
yeah.
They're going that deep. Okay.
Yeah. This is what like Keith Olbermann is saying. Like,
oh yeah, right.
Yeah. But I know that Keith Olbermann is completely discredited, but he like actually had a career and is a public person. And like there are multiple public people saying shit like this. Like,
oh no, he speaks for probably, I don't know. What do you think? 10 to 20% of the Democratic Party? I mean, maybe more. Maybe half. I mean, fanatical Trump derangement syndrome, like the hardest TDS there is. He probably speaks for half the party, something like that. Don't you think? Like, I would think half of registered Democrats would listen to Keith Olbermann and be like, yeah, man.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's not fringe. Yeah. He's not discredited. He's mainstream in a sense, I think. No, they're the fanatics. I mean, I listen to MAGA all the time. They're not fanatics. It's the Democrats who are fanatics. And yeah.
Oh, that's the biggest disappointment for me also from Democrats is that they're just not curious. And like the whole, I mean, we talked about this earlier, but the whole situation raises absolutely no alarm bells at all in their heads that a president, that I still can't get over that a president who was adamantly saying he's still running suddenly gets COVID, as Alex Jones predicted would happen.
Oh,
yeah.
Once again,
like this has been a storyline that Alex Jones has been talking about forever. And then seemingly under duress drops out, posts to X, which is supposedly MAGA world, right? X isn't official. Democrats hate X. That's Elon Musk's disinformation platform. And that post is everything. And then he gives an address without any press in front of him that answers 0 questions and is just him campaigning again. Like, no alarm bells are off on this. Black Lives Matter. Yeah, but
so I mean, this is back to sort of what happened during those days. I mean, I think there was a huge fight within the family, within the party, inside the White House. And I think Joe was probably yelling and screaming and hitting things as hard as he can anyway, and being very upset because, again, half a century, his entire life as a politician, as a political leader, he finally made it to the promised land where he always wanted to get to, the White House. And now they're pulling him out, when he has a chance to do a second term and become, historic, et cetera, at least in his mind. No, he fought. And we know this because he resisted openly, publicly until all of a sudden. And so I think that it was just a lot of fighting and a lot of emotional turmoil. And I think he probably was emotionally unable to speak in public about it without getting too angry or being upset about it or something until, was it yesterday? Yesterday.
Last night, yeah.
Last night, yeah. And he slurred his way through the entire thing. But he was emotionally controlled. So from whenever, was it Saturday, Sunday, when did he announce that he was dropping out? 3-4 days. He needed 3 or 4 days to cool down. He just got cooed. He got cooed. Well, he knows he got cooed.
The conspiracy theories on the right, and Hotep Jesus has been saying this, is that there's a possibility Biden's already dead. And there's been conspiracy theories forever that there's been like 5 different Joe Bidens and like all the differences in his facial features, which are you've noticed them. You're like, what's going on here? What happened? Like, why is his chin in that weird position? And we know the CIA has masks that are indistinguishable from the real thing. So it's very possible for somebody his height to just put on a mask and walk around and make public appearances. But it is possible that the address we saw last night was a deep fake. AI technology keeps getting better and better, and probably the CIA has better access to the stuff than what we have. And it was a very sterile television environment. Like no actual press in the room. Like the only time Joe Biden has been seen in public since then is just like one quick walk to Air Force One waving at reporters. I think one of the videos of Trump on January 6th, the third one that was released, to me that feels like a deep fake. And so like, how are you just not curious about this at all? That's what I'm saying. How are you not? How does this not raise any suspicions? Why aren't you asking questions? Why are you just immediately in lockstep with what the agenda is now going forward? And that you're like so eager to drink the Kool-Aid and so eager to be on board with the agenda now that it's different. That's
Well, wait, who are you talking about?
To Democrats just in general. Like,
oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you're actually leaning, or are you convinced that it's a deep fake? That he's in cold storage somewhere?
I'm not ruling it out. I'm not ruling it out. He might already be dead. There's a million factors. I would not put it past them, and they definitely have the technology and the ability to do this.
Seems hard to pull that one off without there being some kind of leak.
Or he might still be sick. He might still be sick and unable to do it.
I mean, but why would they do a deep fake in which he slurs every word for 12 minutes?
Because otherwise it wouldn't be believable. If he spoke articulately, they're like, why is Biden being articulate for the first time in 5 years?
I got to tell you, they did a good job, because early in the talk, he lifts a finger when he makes a point.
Oh yeah.
He goes like, whatever it is, like, and the Federal Reserve, and then he keeps talking and talking and talking and leaves the finger up there just hovering for like 5 minutes. Everybody can watch it. It's really good. It's like a classic demented old man move. So they're skilled, the CIA. I don't know. Yeah. No, I think I'm right, and I'm always right. So let's just go with that.
Okay.
Which is that he was very upset. There was a big fight. It's the end of his career and effectively the end of his life. Politics has been his life. And so I think he needed a few days to gather himself, I guess. I don't know. Now the phone call or whatever that was with Kamala. Event.
Yeah.
Odd for sure. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I just listened to the clips, but I don't know about that one.
It sounded like a soundboard too. Like when Kamala asked, "Are you there? Are you there, Joe?" Joe didn't say, "Yeah, I'm still here, Kamala. Thanks." He's like and we're gonna
auto tune
a soundboard. Like you pre-record some generic sounding statements and you just push them when they're prompted.
Right.
And Kamala did say it's so great to have that phone call of Biden. She did say that. So I think broader contextualizing this, the Drake Kendrick Lamar beef was a good precursor to the election politics dynamics happening right now, in that you have basically the immediate drop of huge news after the assassination. Like Kamala stepping in now robbed Trump of all the energy that he had going forward after the assassination attempt and after the RNC. And like Republicans on Twitter right now are trying to like desperately bring the discussion back to the assassination attempt. But we're in a state in American politics where an assassination attempt doesn't even warrant a week of attention anymore if we've moved on to the new thing.
Well, the incumbent dropping out of the race hasn't happened since LBJ.
Yeah.
Historic. We were done, and then Trump gets shot in the ear. And we forgot about the first thing, and now we're already moving past the attempted assassination on the other major candidate and former president. Like,
yeah,
no, you're right. It's astonishing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's almost like no matter what happens, no matter how traumatic the news is today, just wait. Just wait. It'll go away. And you'll forget all about it, and everyone else will within a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It's something else. You're right. But was there a broader point you were making, though? About the ephemeral nature of American politics?
Yeah. Well, I did that to bring up talking about the assassination because I didn't think we really addressed it too fully last week.
Oh, we didn't?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, like now Cheadle, like we didn't talk about like the forensics of it and like the motivation behind it. And like the failure of the Secret Service. Was the Secret Service in on it? Was this, I mean, we just took it for granted that it was the deep state trying to kill him, which it obviously was, but Secret Service Director Cheadle testified before Congress this week, and AOC was the only one asking good questions also from the Democratic side. I think she knows that, like, if Trump can get shot, she can get shot, and she's demanding answers on that.
Yeah.
Cheadle was like so incompetent, didn't know that. Yeah.
Okay. I want to identify who I believe to be the culprits, as precisely and specifically as I can. So that requires a little bit of background, and context. So if you are to take or were to take our course at Unregistered Academy on the JFK assassination with Larry Hancock, you will see that Larry lays out a quite persuasive argument that it was not the CIA that killed JFK, wasn't even the leadership of the CIA that was involved in the assassination of JFK, but that it was most likely, probably, maybe half a dozen to a dozen agents in the CIA in one particular field station, which was in Miami, guys who were involved in the Bay of Pigs invasion that was botched. They blamed Kennedy. We know they were very angry at Kennedy for not calling in air support for them, etc. They had motivation. They were well armed. They had experience in doing such things as carrying out assassinations, as in Cuba and elsewhere. So that politically also makes sense to me. To say that the CIA would kill JFK is political nonsense, because JFK was doing everything the CIA wanted on a grand scale, and we can talk about that, of course. But like, so the idea that the deep state killed Trump is a little hard for me to take. For one thing, you know, I just don't think, I'm not saying you're suggesting this, but like, people talk about it as if, of course, it's some unified, monolithic, organized, hierarchical entity or organization. It's of course not. I mean, it's, how many federal employees are there? It's millions of people who worked for the federal government, most of whom share the same, roughly same political ideology, and tend to work and think and move in concert, in unison, because they share the same ideology. So I think, I'm zero evidence of this, but I think it's not plausible to me that the deep state did this or did anything really like that. But it's entirely plausible that elements within the deep state, maybe within the FBI, maybe within the CIA, but not the leadership, and certainly not as organizations as a whole, was somehow involved in this. That makes sense to me because, number one, those are the people who are most passionate about hating Trump. People who work in the federal government, especially in certain agencies and departments, their whole careers, their whole lives really have been built around serving the public good as they see it. And overwhelmingly, of course, they're Democrats and liberals, and they want to do, they're do-gooders. And they see Trump, rightly or wrongly, as threatening all of that, their very existence. It's an existential threat to them that literally threatens their jobs, their livelihoods, their careers, their whole meaning of life, their whole reason to live, essentially. he's threatening. So those are the people who are most passionate, who are in the streets, really wanting to take him down. And so I certainly see people who work somewhere in the federal bureaucracy hating Trump that much to do something like that. Yes, I do. Some of the millions who work within the federal bureaucracy, sure, I think there are probably some who are, well, I mean, my own mother talks about assassinating Trump. Liberal grandmothers talk about assassinating Trump. You know, we know this. How many millions of Democratic Party liberals have talked about killing Trump? Now, most of them are not serious about it, but they're serious enough that there's got to be some who actually would. They really do think he's Hitler. So I do think that's, so what about that? Do you think that's, how about that? Like, can we just like agree that there's a good chance that there are elements within the deep state, meaning the federal bureaucracy, who were behind it, but not any kind of organized sort of grand conspiracy?
Well, it doesn't need to be a huge organized grand conspiracy. It doesn't need, like, the fewer people involved, the more likely it is to succeed. But also incentive wise, like, I don't think you have to be in a very, very, very deeply read territory not to personally know somebody who wasn't disappointed that the bullet missed Trump. Like, and so all the, like, it's like, how seriously do you think Joe Biden is going to take the role of protecting Donald Trump's life? Right? Like, I think the reason why Secret Service was so low officially was that Jill Biden had like a fundraising thing at a casino somewhere that day. And so she needed 12 Secret Service agents to follow her. And so you could honestly point to just Joe Biden and the Secret Service and Cheadle's incompetence and say that's all it was. There's a million credible threats, and they were honestly hoping that one would actually take him out. That's really all you need. And the Secret Service have now advised Trump to not hold any events outdoors anymore and not do these massive outdoor rallies. So they basically taken away his main way of campaigning, period.
So most presidents of the United States, I believe it's a majority, quite sure it's a majority of them have had legitimate assassination attempts against them. A shot was fired,
recorded, or
at least a plot. But I mean, shots fired, you know, knives stabbed at, you know, what I mean, and, you know, many of them survived, like Reagan, like Trump. But yeah, most of them faced serious assassination attempts. And again, some of them were successful, you know, many, and many others got close enough, got as close as they did with Trump. You know, Reagan is a good example, you know, and that's modern US history, right? When the Secret Service was badass as hell during the Reagan administration, right? The entire US military was badass as hell in the 80s. And yet Hinckley got a shot at him and almost killed him. Got a better shot at him than Crooks did against Trump. So yeah, I think it's incompetence. I mean, those guys jumped on top of Trump. And again, I said this last week, and I have nothing really good to say about the institution at all, but I was very impressive that every one of those guys was willing to take a bullet like that. They really demonstrated that. I mean, it's incredible to think that they jumped on top of him knowing that there could have been a second shot or another shot easily.
So how was a guy who had a rangefinder, sorry. He had a rangefinder confiscated, like, he was discovered to have a rangefinder that day. How is he not arrested on the spot for that? Like,
yeah, incompetence. I really do think. I just don't see it as a conspiracy. I mean, again, they would have had to involve the local police, because the local police were a major part of that
in thwarting it.
The guys in the military, uniforms
Mm-hmm.
with the machine guns. I think those are all local or state police. And the 2 snipers on the roof that you could see, I think those were also state police snipers, I believe. The guy who took him out was a Secret Service sniper, but there were 2 others, I believe. Anyway, I know there was local police there. I mean, you have had to involve them. There's no chance.
You wouldn't have. I mean,
well, somehow. I mean, you would have had to tell those guys who were right next to crooks under that building not to bother with the kid with the rifle on the roof. I mean, as everybody's screaming, there's a guy with a gun on the roof. No, it was just, I don't know, incompetence. The fact that they had to ram through that fence with the SUV, I guess, to get to crooks. Is that what that was? But they had to ram through that fence because they hadn't planned that out. That's not a conspiracy. That's just dipshits. I mean, that woman unable to holster the gun, that's just poor training. That's not a conspiracy. The looks on her, I'm sorry, but the 2 women were the only ones who looked scared, but they did. That's DEI. You know, these were 2 people who shouldn't be Secret Service agents protecting a president or a candidate. So don't you think? I mean, no.
Well, you have to find out like why the Secret Service who had spotted him, where did they get a stand down order from? I think that's where the devil is in the details. Like, why were they told to stand down? And then another angle of this is, yes, there's the Secret Service incompetence, but there's also the CIA and FBI's incompetence because, like they would have, if the CIA didn't have the competency crisis that they currently have, they would have actually hired a better shooter and actually killed Trump.
Yeah, if you ever have any doubt about the competency of the CIA, for instance, take a look at the Steele dossier. Everybody should go read the Steele dossier. It'll take you about 3 minutes because it's that simple and small and childish. It's the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it is. When I read it, I thought it was a joke. I thought that this couldn't be the Steele dossier. I mean, it's incredible how dumb it is. And that, CIA was involved in that heavily, probably wrote it directly. And so, no. And the FBI, look at all the antics the FBI has pulled over the years.
Well,
no, I mean, these are not necessarily intelligent or competent organizations. No.
And to place us in a pattern, right? You have Donald Trump getting spied on in his last camp in 2016. You have the Russia hoax from the FBI, the Steele dossier. And then you have 2 impeachment attempts. And then you have January 6th. And then you have all the lawfare after that. You have this escalating push from the deep state and from Democratic operatives, all that. And then none of that works. He's still the presumptive nominee. So the next escalation, if you want to take Trump out by any means necessary, is to kill him.
Yeah. I just can't imagine anybody high level willing to risk that. Willing to risk all that would come with getting caught doing it.
All you have to do is do the stochastic terrorism of he's Hitler for 8 years. Sure. And then there'll be enough people who want to do it on their own. And then you just make security incompetent and it'll happen organically.
Yeah. And I think that's probably what happened. Yeah. Some version of that for sure. Yeah, for sure. All right, man. No Unregistered Live tonight.
Okay, dang.
We're on the summer set schedule. Sorry. We had an amazing session last week. An incredible session, kind of a historic one. So if you want to join for next week, join us at patreon.com/unregistered. Become a patron for $5 a month. You can hang out with us on Unregistered Live, which is a Zoom call with Michael and me after Unreported every week, every Thursday night at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. It's a lot of fun. We've been doing it for years and people enjoy it. So yeah, become a patron, even if you don't want to come to Unregistered Live, and help us out. There you go. Right there. Patreon.com/unregistered. Thank you, Handyman. Appreciate it. You're on fire too. But the king of fire is Michael Weimer right here, Pastor Weimer,
Pastor,
otherwise known as. And yeah, man, this was fun. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'll see you over there.
Not tonight though.
Oh, I mean, my God, forget that, everybody.
Yeah.
Don't do drugs, kids. I'll see you next week, and probably sooner. But anyway, everyone else, I'll see you next week. All right, don't listen to me.
Right.
Peace.
Peace. Play my
Bye.
music. Play my. There we go.